So thank you for being here, given the time and the lunch still to be. So and what I'm going to discuss is not about technical parts of wave energy converters. It's about financing methods for wave energy parks. A wave energy park is really the backbone of a wave energy project. Is the site where the machines are going to be installed, and it has a cable and a grid connection. It has power purchase agreements with electricity users. It has O&M contracts with EPC contractors, and it hosts wave energy machines. The ownership of the wave energy park can, in principle and in practice, is typically different from the ownership of the machines. It's not necessary at all that they coincide. And the capital costs and the management needs for these different parts of a wave energy project vary widely depending on where you concentrate your attention. So the flow of money also is very relevant for what I'm going to say. Well, all money comes from the use of electricity. So the flow starts from the electricity users, which pay the infrastructure operator, the park owner, through the agreement on the cable, which actually puts the electricity in the grid, or to the user, which might not necessarily be the grid. Then the money from there needs to be distributed to various parts. It needs to be distributed to the contractors to operate physically the park and do the O&M. Needs to go to the technology developer, who is typically providing second-level maintenance and guarantees and monitoring, and then goes to the machine owners, which in a sense you should think of them as leasing or locating their machines in the park, so they get a fee for that. This structure is not a concept, is also a practical way to structure an actual project, which allows to subdivide risk and responsibilities where they should lie, instead of concentrating all of them in the same subject, which risks to be too onerous. So typically for small-scale wave energy parks, what we have been seeing is that communities tend to be very much involved, because a small-scale wave energy park, like any other small-scale renewables project, will have strong ties to the specifics of the location, will depend strongly on the actual characteristic of the site where one is going to install, and local knowledge of the site is essential to the success of the project. This is different with respect to more industrial-scale projects. So the local community will be involved in the park. And actually involvement can be very positive, in the sense that the community can actually benefit enormously from the direct involvement in such a renewables project. They can actually gain direct financial benefit from the resource, the wave resource, which in a sense is theirs, because they are the ones who live at that site. So a way to involve the community, and actually a very flexible and effective and powerful way to involve the community, is through a form of crowdfunding. This has been used already all over the world to finance renewables projects, typically solar projects, which are a much more mature technology. But nothing prevents, in principle, to use the same approach to finance wave energy projects. In a small-scale project, typically the crowdfunding would have to cover both the infrastructure part of the project and at least part of the machines part of the project. That doesn't prevent the possibility that at least a few of the machines which go in the project could be financed from external sources, not from the community itself, from investors, which actually would like to locate their machines at that site. A large-scale park instead is a different story altogether. It is managed professionally. It will be managed professionally by in a much more systematic and documented way. It will have characteristics in terms of productivity of the machines and of efficiency of the organizational structure, which will be publicly available and accessible to and certifiable by independent authorities. So in such a situation, it is much easier for an external investor not involved in any way with the specifics of the infrastructure project to locate a machine at the site for a purely financial goal, to obtain the revenue obtained from locating the machine at that site. And in this case, the risk in this type of initiative is completely separated from the risk related to the site, the specifics of the site. Is a technology risk related to the machine itself, but it has no relationship with the type of sea bottom, consenting regime, time to develop the project. So the investor is really completely separated from the specifics. And also this type of project lends itself perfectly for crowdfunding, but on a much larger scale, in the sense that the crowdfunders can come from anywhere, really, in the world. They can finance a piece of a machine which is going to be installed in that given park with an approach which is very similar to what they would do if they invested in a financial vehicle. So, because in this case, in a professionally administered wave energy park, as I said, all risk is well documented, well laid out, and return on investment can be, to a very good extent, guaranteed by the park operator. I mean, this is not something which is interesting in itself. It's something which can bring into marine energy, into wave energy in particular, an amount of resources which would otherwise be difficult to mobilize, unless, of course, you do traditional style projects like offshore wind projects, which are, however, much more complex to structure. This can be a much more flexible and effective way to bring capital to this type of projects. Of course, a lot of work has to be done, and is not there yet, to structure these deals in a way which effectively shelters completely the crowdfunder from the type of risk which is not right to put on someone who does not have direct access to the specific activity. And that is why it's a structure like the one I was describing before is necessary, in which the actual specifics are concentrated on the wave energy park infrastructure and operators, while the machine owners are completely separate, are something different, and don't need to be exposed to the risks associated to that specific project. This is just an example that I put on this slide of a possible case. As I said, I'm not saying that this project is ready for crowdfunding. A lot of legal work needs to be in place to guarantee this separation of risk between the operators and the crowdfunders. But even a small-scale project like this one, on which my organization is working, with just 3 machines. So we are talking about a very small value in financial terms, which would be very difficult to propose to professional investors, because it's below the radar for large-scale investment groups, could very well be financed, and actually very effectively financed, through a crowdfunding approach. And this size probably is the type of size that would be more akin to a community-scale project, because it's so small that community would be involved one way or another in this one. but again, with very big return in terms not only of capital, but also of human involvement and social involvement in the project, because the community would actually own directly at least part of the project and would be involved in the decisions which are relevant to the life of the project, which reflect immediately in the life of the community. So, as I said, these are two different aspects of crowdfunding. In the community scale projects, you actually bring to life one of the key aspects of crowdfunding, which is its social one, direct involvement of people in an actual investment, which would not be accessible by a single individual in that community. But once you pool the resources, you can do it. And then there is the opposite side of the spectrum in large-scale wave energy parks, where you put to fruition the other aspect of crowdfunding, which is its global nature, no boundaries. In a well-structured, large-scale project, yeah, in a large-scale project, people from anywhere in the world can approach that particular marine project and be involved in something in which, again, they would not be able to be involved in a traditional way of doing it. It would be reserved to professional investment houses with very large amounts of capital. Instead, this can be a $100 investment for that single person, which pooled together bring to life a much larger and much more interesting project. Again, as I was saying, and this is very relevant, our lawyers told us to point this out. We are not advising on any type of investment. This is not ready for prime time yet, but we are working on that, and we would love to receive feedback on this type of project. Okay, so thank you.